Mr. Trump, you've repeatedly deflected calls for specific national security or defense policy plans with the claim that you'll ask the best people when you become president and take their advice. So who are the best people? Can you reveal 2 or 3 names that you trust for national security?
I think Richard Haas is excellent. I have a lot of respect for him. I think General Kane is excellent. I think that I like Colonel Jacobs very much. I see him. I know him.
So who are the best people that Trump keeps talking about? The first 3 people he named are Richard Haas, president of the CFR, or Council of Foreign Relations, General Kane, presumably retired Major General Robert C. Kane, and Colonel Jacobs, presumably Colonel Jack Howard Jacobs. All 3 of them are members of the Council of Foreign Relations. And if you're not familiar with what that is, we'll go over why it matters that Trump named those 3 people as his top advisors.
I'd like to welcome you all to the Council on Foreign Relations. For those of you who do not know us, we're an independent, nonpartisan membership organization, a think tank, and a publisher dedicated to being a resource for our nearly 5,000 members, for government officials, business executives, journalists, educators and students, civic and religious leaders, and other citizens to help them better understand the world and the foreign policy choices facing this and other countries.
Admiral Chester Ward, who is a longtime member of the CFR, stated, "The CFR as such does not write the platforms of both political parties, or select their respective presidential candidates, or control U.S. defense and foreign policies. But CFR members, as individuals, acting in concert with other individual CFR members, do."
Thank you very much, Richard, and I am delighted to be here in these new headquarters. I have been often to, the mothership in New York City, but it's good to have an outpost of the Council right here down the street from the State Department. We get a lot of advice from the Council, so this will mean I won't have as far to go to be told what we should be doing and how we should think about the future.
Hillary Clinton, I think, is a terrific woman. I mean, I'm a little biased because I've known her for years. I live in New York. She lives in New York. And I've known her and her husband for years, and I really like them both a lot. And I think she really works hard. And I think she's given an agenda that's not all of her, but I think she really works hard, and I think she does a good job. And I like her.
Do you think that she says she's out at the end of this term? Do you think we're going to see her again running for office?
I think so. I think, assuming she's healthy, which I hope she will be, I think she probably runs after the next 4 years, I would imagine.
You support her?
I don't want to get into this because I'll get myself into trouble. But
That's why I asked you, to see if we get in trouble.
I just like her. I like her, and I like her husband. Her husband made a speech on Monday at Mar-a-Lago, and it was very well received. And he's a really good guy, and she's a really good person and woman.
Now, he said this after Benghazi. He continued to support her, continued to donate money to her, say she was a good person after Benghazi and everything that she was associated with there. He knows about all of the scandals. He knows they're friends. He knows them well. He knows both of the Clintons well and says they're good people. It wasn't until right before he started running as a Republican that he started changing his tune on the Clintons. Does that not sound at all suspicious to people? And knowing that Trump continues to support Hillary up until the time that he runs as a Republican, knowing that they have the same advisors and that they're lifelong friends, do you really think that there's going to be a difference in any of their policies, in the Supreme Court nominations, and any of that? There's not. Just to be clear, the CFR is an organization that advises Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, and many other politicians on how to run the government. Not just the American government, but when it says foreign governments, that it's talking about other governments as well. This is where we get into talk about globalization. What that means is the closer we get to globalization, the less control we have over our own lives, the less control we have over our own laws. So if the international community decides that it wants to limit our rights to self-defense, if it wants to limit our right to worship, if it wants to limit our right to speech, it can do those things because it will do it at some foreign committee, and we won't have control over that because we have allowed globalists like Trump, like Hillary, people who are taking counsel from the CFR to be the ones that are in charge of our government. Do you guys remember in the end of June there was Brexit, which is where Britain exited the European Union? The European Union is an example of globalization. It's an international community or an international committee that gets together and says, we're going to make laws for all of the citizens of our countries. So then the British can't say, hey, we don't like the economic laws, or we don't like the migration laws that are going on right now that has this huge influx of refugees. It's more than we can support as a people. We don't like the economic laws that are making it so that nations like Greece are pulling us down. And so Britain figured out what America did 200 years ago, that national independence and sovereignty is the best way to govern. Yes, we want to have allies in the community, but we don't need to be making laws for each other. That's not right. That's not the way that we need to do things. So this is really happening today. There are people that are realizing that being governed by a foreign power is really terrible. So why are the first names out of Trump's mouth all members of the CFR? Why are they all globalists? Isn't he supposed to be an outsider? And why does he scoff about being a puppet master?
What's wrong? I mean, This is what's wrong. He buys and sells politicians of all stripes. He's already, hey, look, he's already hedging his bet on the Clintons, okay? So if he doesn't run as a Republican, maybe he supports Clinton, or maybe he runs as an independent.
Okay.
But I'd say that he's already hedging his bets because he's used to buying politicians.
Well, I've given him plenty of money.
Just to be clear, you can't make it. We're going to move on. You're not going to make the pledge tonight.
I will not make the pledge at this time. Okay.
Sure, he's not a puppet. He's a puppet master. He acknowledges that he pays and buys off other politicians. And the biggest question is, why are people okay with this? Remember, Trump has been a liberal his entire life. He has been for gun control, for abortion. He is still for transgenders going into anyone's bathroom. So he plays the field. He'll register as a Republican, he'll register as a Democrat, he'll register as an independent, he registers whatever he needs to get what he wants. And by the way, Johnson, with the Libertarian Party, he's a social liberal, just like Hillary is, and just like Trump was up until he started running as a Republican. And, well, if you look at his policies, he is a social liberal, meaning that they're for gay marriage, they're for, abortion as a form of birth control. There's really not much of a difference except that Johnson will balance the budget. Whoop-de-flip-and-do. That's small potatoes when you have abortion and gay marriage and the destruction of the family unit on the line. Now I want to go over another shared advisor that they have. If you're old enough, you remember this guy, Henry Kissinger. He's the reason that we lost the Vietnam War. Americans did not lose to a bunch of under-equipped, outnumbered communists. We lost to Henry Kissinger. What would happen was we would, our troops would be receiving fire, or they would see the enemy, and before they could open fire, they had to call into D.C., and Henry Kissinger would say whether or not they could open fire. Okay, so we didn't lose to the communists, we didn't lose to the Viet Cong. The only war that America has lost, we lost because our Secretary of State, Henry Kissinger, was the one at the helm. By the way, Secretary of State, keep that title in mind. Okay, now it says that this is 2 weeks after this is 2 weeks after Cruz drops out, right? It says that Trump and Kissinger met in Kissinger's home, nice and cozy, right? And it says that he wants to reach out to the Republican establishment. Of course, they call them the orthodoxy, the old bloods. Okay, so this is who Trump is meeting with, the guy the reason that we lost the Vietnam War. Okay, now let's go on to the next one. So Hillary and Henry, the Clintons' relationship with Kissinger. So it says Donald Trump may be the one meeting with the former Secretary of State, but he isn't the candidate with the closest relationship. Now these are some of the things that she says about Henry Kissinger. Okay, they're both Secretaries of State, years apart. She calls him a friend, and noting that she relied on his counsel when she was Secretary of State from 2009 to 2013. So if you're upset about Benghazi, guess who she was getting counsel and advice from? This guy, the same guy that's been meeting with Trump, okay? She says, he checked in with me regularly, sharing astute observations about foreign leaders and sending me weekly reports of his travels. Though we often see the world and some of our challenges quite differently, and that's the thing, they can see things differently, but that doesn't mean they don't share the same goal, right? You and your friends, you might see things differently, but you'll share the same goal. Now, they've advocated for different responses now and in the past. Now, she was doing a review of his book called World Order. That's the thing, is that these globalists, they used to be really quiet about this kind of stuff, but in 1991, they started coming out with it. You can hear David Rockefeller talk about it at the Bilderberg meetings, which, by the way, was attended by Governor Bill Clinton, and he admits it. You can find the video on YouTube. I'm not going to go over it. Anyways, so it goes on to say that they're friends outside of politics. They keep in touch, and then she says, she brings him up as a positive person. I was very flattered when Henry Kissinger said I ran the State Department better than anyone had run it in a long time. I don't know, maybe since the Vietnam War, when he was running it. I'm sure. Okay, speaking of Hillary Clinton's review of Henry Kissinger's World Order, it's this entire document, okay? You can go through it. It's good and long. It's a glowing review, says that they used the U.S. military for their own agenda, talks about the global order a lot. Next we have, this is kind of after Donald Trump has met with Henry Kissinger. This was what, Trump kind of tries to subtly hint that he met with him, and he's like, oh yeah, he agrees. So he says, one of the biggest diplomats in the country, who's a friend of mine. Everyone important is a friend of his, of course. Who's a friend of mine. You saw recently I actually met with him, and it was all over the place. So you can figure out who it is, right? So he said, Donald, I thought you were wrong in your approach. I thought it was too tough. But you know what? All these countries are calling me. What do we do? What do we do? How can we make him happy? So here we see Kissinger knows he's been called out, and so he comes back with, well, we agree on some things, but really we disagree on other things, so it's not that big of a deal. Don't worry about it, everyone. Meanwhile, Kissinger's kicking him under the table. Shut up, man! But anyway, they're meeting, they're discussing foreign policy. Trump's been a liberal, progressive Democrat he's been a socialist for, 34 years. Again, why does this keep happening? Why is the quote-unquote outsider that's supposed to be so different than Hillary keep meeting with the same people? Why are they talking, why are they meeting in each other's homes? Was when Bill Clinton met with Loretta Lynch, we knew that they weren't talking about, the game or a new cupcake recipe. We knew that they were talking about Hillary Clinton's upcoming indictment. And so we can use that same deductive reasoning to say, maybe they weren't talking about golf. Maybe there was something more going on here. And it stinks. It stinks to high heaven. There's something more going on. And if we can't see that, if we think, he's so different from her because they have all the same advisors and they've had the same policies for years, except that he flip-flopped a couple of years ago. But yeah, he's different now. Are we really going to fool ourselves like that? Why would we do that to ourselves? What do we expect to happen? It's not going to be any different. He's not going to be any better than her because he has the same agenda. They might disagree on some things, but again, they have the same agenda of global control, New World Order, taking power from the states, giving it to a foreign government that will rule over, the Americas the same way that Britain was ruled over by the EU. And we got to stop it. If we want to avoid that, we can't say the lesser of two Democrats. We have to choose someone else. We have to come together on someone else. Now this is where I might lose some of you, because everything that I've shared so far has been facts. You can find it in the news, it's their own words, there's no denying it. You might not like it, but it's true. This is where I'm going to get into my opinion on what we should do about it. Now, two things. One, if someone is voting their conscience and they're voting for whoever, let them do that. If they're doing it out of fear, that's a problem. And you may not be able to convince them, but at least present the facts of, hey, this is what's going on. Do it calmly, do it respectfully. The other thing is, do vote. Get out and vote for someone, because there's more than just the presidential elections. I swear, they want us to forget that there are state and local elections, and those are going to be our best defense against overreaching federal government. No matter who gets in, chances are there's going to be overreaching federal government, and so your state and local leaders are going to be your best defense against them. So make sure you go out and vote. And if you vote for someone that is, stand up before God, they are a good, decent person, not perfect, nobody's perfect, but if you can do that, and if enough people are voting for someone that's moral, that will make a difference before God. It will. If you don't vote, then you're not putting forth the work, and so your faith is dead. I'll be voting for someone that represents my views, represents my morality, represents me to God. I'm tired of trusting in the arm of the flesh. I'm going to leave it up to God. I'm going to vote for the right person. I'm going to do the right thing. I'm not going to take the coward's way out and say, oh, but if I don't vote for this person, then this person's going to win. That's voting on fear. I'm going to vote on faith. You guys do what you want to do. But I hope that we all do the right thing. Because if we get enough people doing the right thing, then we will qualify for God to take a part in this election. Because he can heal us. Trump can't do it. Johnson can't do it. No one can do it. Not even Ted Cruz. And I like Ted Cruz. No one can do it except God.